So now we're going to look at this idea of, as I said, the serpent's venom is equated with death, but it can also be equated with resurrection and life. Again, this idea of light, which is equated with a sapling and growth and the neophyte and the replanting of a prophetic tradition. So if we look at Numbers 21 verse 8, we're seeing this relationship between death and between life. So, and the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent. In this case, we're dealing here with a seraph, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he looked upon it, shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass, which is Nakash. Again, we're drawing to the idea that the Nakash and the seraphim are one and the same. And I think that this is important because it seems here that the priestly scribes are really trying to reiterate that the seraphim and the Nakash are one and the same, which makes me think, was there a split within the priesthood between the Nakash and the seraph? Again, that's not something that I've looked into, but I think that that is perhaps a pertinent question which could be looked into further. So, and Moses made a serpent of brass, Nakash, and it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. So, the idea of looking and living is important, this idea that to look towards God imbibes life. And so we'll look at some of the etymologies of looking. And again, it's circular or elliptical of the watchers who are described as gods or deities. And we're going to look at this idea that the gods themselves are represented as the watchers, which again would be implicit that the watchers are one and the same with the deity, as I mentioned earlier, between the etymology of the Malach Elohim. The Malach Elohim, and again, Yahweh is often described as Malach, an angel as well. So he's a messenger. Yahweh himself can be represented as an angel or a messenger. So let's have a look at what we mean by when any man looked at the serpent, he lived. So looking.
But that was a representation of the seraph.
Yes, again, it's self-referential to the seraph. This idea that if you adopt the laws of the seraphim, then you will live, you will be prosperous. If you are of the Republic and think that humans should actually rule themselves, then obviously you're going to run into trouble. So let's have a look at the word looking. Looking in this respect, it comes from the prime root ra'ah, which is to look, and again is a pun on the adjective ra, which is evil. So again, it's duplicitous, it's a duplex symbol. It's working on double bind. So this idea of the evil eye is connected to looking, ra to look, and ra, which is evil, in this respect, the evil eye. So looking, though, in this respect is equated or is connoting looking towards God and dispelling evil. And God in this respect can be understood to be the Elohim, which is the plural word for the gods. In this respect, really what we're dealing here is the henotheistic tradition of God. So the Elohim in this respect would be honorific, but it has this very strong, it's a strong marker which indicates God and his host. So when you take on God, not only do you take on God, but you take on his host as well. When you go to war with God, you don't just go to war with El, but you go to war with his angels as well. So this is an important idea. So it's important to note that Yahweh himself is referred to as a watcher and is found within the Judaic name Yahweh Yireh. Yahweh will see. This idea that he's an all-seeing God. He's omnipotent, he's omnipresent, and he can see everything. But again, when we're looking at the deities, they are all represented as watchers. And I think that this is very important to understand within the ancient world, because the watchers are equated with the angels or the shining ones, and they are equated with the seraphim. So, and the seraphim go back to Sirius. So let's have a look at the etymology. So, as I said, Ra is to look, and is a pun on the adjective Ra, which is evil. But we're seeing that the denigration of the Egyptian sun deity as well. Ra is the Hebrew word for evil. So Ra has been denigrated. He's the Egyptian sun god. But actually, when we break it down, Ra is Sirius. Overtly, in the outer mysteries, he is worshipped as the sun god. But in the inner mysteries, he was worshipped as Sirah, which is Sirius. Now, what is Sirah? Well, Sir means a secret or a mystery. And Ra is the mysteries of Ra. The mysteries of Ra is Sirius. So Ra, the sun god, but underneath is Sirius and his representation of Sirius. Ra is related to Ra, which is to look. When we look at Yahweh, the Aramaic name, Yahweh is related to Yara, which is to see, which is the Arabic verb, but again is used within the ancient Aramaic. Theos, a god, is equated with Theoros, a watcher. Again, Era, watcher, the singular noun, is equated with Yira, which is to see. Seraph is another designation of Sopheth, a watcher. Drakon, Drakain, to watch, flash, or gleam. Again, this is going back to the Jin, Ayin, which is an I. The Y sound, Y, in the Semitic is often transposable both with the J sound and the G sound, depending on the morphology. So Ayin and Jin, and again, the Jin are denoted as Jen, which is a serpent or a worm. And again, theologians often translate, the Arabic theologians often translate the word seraphim as a jinn. So again, we're seeing that there is this interplay between the idea of the angels and the jinn and the seraphim, which are all equated with the Ruach Elohim, the high spirits, which is duplicitous of an Elokeh, which is a living creature. So basically, the gods or the deities are equated with watching. Now, lifting up the serpent, there is a theological context, and you probably picked up on this yourself, Judith, in the Christian mysteries. So the idea that Christ is lifted up on a stake, which can also be represented as a cross, and the lifting up of the serpent. And again, this is a really complicated tradition, and it goes into the splitting of the priesthood, because basically within the priesthood, as I said before, in the cult traditions, you have knowledge from the serpent and knowledge from the human tradition. In the classical tradition, the Pythagorean, Puthosagora, the speaker of the serpent, and the Euclidean tradition. Euclid is to copy or to ape, Kurd, which is an ape, which is this humanist element. Now, so the priesthood is split between the humanist element and the serpent, and they meet in the middle often, like with the Levites, with the idea of joining or combining. And again, within archaeology, this would be represented as the serpent and the lion, which is often combined together, which is the lion, again, is a watcher, but this is denoting the mammal because it has hair, and it's a signifier of the mammal, and it's combined or conjoined with the serpent. Typically the serpent's tail, which would represent the phallus. So I'm going to read you now Moses setting the serpent upon the pole, and then we can just then actually summarize what we mean by lifting up on the pole and just go over some of the finer details. So this is Moses setting up the serpent upon the pole, and it's, if I've got this correct, I think it's Numbers chapter 21, verse 9. So, and the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent, which is a seraph, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that every one that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, he shall live. And Moses made a serpent of brass, which we said is Nakash, and it came to pass that if a serpent had bitten any man, when he beheld the serpent of brass, he lived. So, this idea of looking, Ra, is to look. It dispels Ra, which is evil. We said that looking is equated with the watchers or the seraphim, which are also identified with Theos, a god, Theoros, a watcher. In the Greek or in the Aramaic, we've got Yahweh and Yara, to see, or we've got, again, the seraph and Sopheth, a watcher. So we can see that in verse 9, Nakash, a brazen serpent, again going back to the Arabic root nahas, which is bronze, is a fiery serpent, and it's interchangeable with a seraphim. So we're seeing that the two words are used in an interchangeable way. Now, I want to look at the word pole, because that in itself is kind of an interesting word. And again, it really goes back to the traditions of the Ophanim and the wheels, or these angelic carriers, which in the contemporary parlance would be a flying saucer. So the word pole is an ambilocution, so it's a wordplay, it has this double meaning. So the pole which the snake is raised up upon, it's used as a designation of a flagpole, but it's also used to denote a sail or a sail pole, to put up a sail. And this is important because, as we said before, Malak, an angel, is Malak, a sailor. So again, the pole is used to denote it's used to denote at one level a type of missile, but as I said before, the missile is interchangeable with a circular shield, and the shield is interchangeable both with the spinning shield of the host, which is a type of missile which can destroy and which can burn, which are equated with the seraphic host, but is also equated with a missile as in a dart. And again, the idea of a dart can have sexual connotations as well. So the symbolism is very rich and it's very nuanced. And so the flagpole in this respect, which is used to designate a sail or a flagpole, is really connoting the angelic sailors. And as we said before, the angelic sailors are equated with this grafted lineage, which are equated with lordship. So, but also we're seeing that there's a correspondence here with Nes, which is a sail, and there's a formation of Nessa, which is to lift. So to lift up the flag or to lift up the sail, which again is implicit of an elevated angel. And in this respect, it can really be understood to be a seraphim angel. The seraphim angel that is elevated is equated with the Ruach Elohim, the high spirits, who are the jinn, or the seraphim, who are once again the Elohim. Okay, and again, the seraphim is interchangeable with Nakash. So I'm just going to reiterate some of the points now that I've made. Let's just have a look. So, as I said before, this idea of that a lineage can be supplanted, this is going back to the Judaic traditions of Jacob. Jacob and Esau, they were both twins. Now, Jacob is coming from the root Yaakov, which is to supplant. Keb is the Old Semitic word for a serpent. Kab, which is a coil. So, again, Jacob is a supplanter, but this is really the supplanting by the seraphic lineage. And as we said, the seraphic lineage goes all the way back to Eve. Our Eve is related to Awim, which is the serpents. Okay, so this is important to understand. So the royal lineage, therefore, is derived from the snake. And I want to just have a look at some of the word plays which we're seeing as well. So when we look at the word nakash, for example, a serpent, we can say that in some respects it conforms to the adjective nekah, which is strange or alien. And as I mentioned before, Zar is an angel, but it is polymorphic of an alien, Zar, which is an alien. Zar, an angel, is equated in the Apocrypha traditions with the Akzari, a brother of an angel or an alien, which is a wordplay on the Arabic Akzari, a brother of light. Brother of light is connoting Sirius and the seraphim. Sira.
And that is why the Russian Tsars, and that is where the Russian Tsars derived their right to
that is correct. And Tsar in the Persian as well. So the word is used throughout and is still used now. So that is correct. And again, even when you look at, for example, the Greek word Sebastos, which is emperor, is going back to Sabaoth, which is the host. So again, this is an angelic lineage. And even when you look at the Greek word Caesar, which is Caesar, is a diptych paranomasia on the Hebrew word Caesar, which is a space alien. So Caesar's lineage is derived from an alien, which is angelic, lordship. So he is a lordship. So, Nakasha serpent, the Nakasha serpent is seen as being Nekah, which is strange or alien. But again, we're seeing that also that the being instates Karim, which is a noble. So if you think of Nekah, which is strange, and Karim, which is a noble, the ending of the word Ka, Nekah, Karim, which is a noble. Now, Karim, a noble, again, is highly indicative of the Karin, which is a jinn or a familiar spirit. So there is, if you like, this connotation that the noble, and again the word noble is rendered in the plural, so it's honorific. The Karim, a noble, is closely analogous to Karin, which is a jinn. And Karin, a jinn, again goes back to the Arabic word Kahin, which is an entity. And again, is closely concordant with Erin, which is a watcher, or a shining one, which is a seraphim, or Sophefa watcher, Seraph a serpent, Serapha, which is fire. So again, I think what's quite interesting is that when you look at the Semitic noun Nasika prince, again, when you look at the morphology of the N and the M, Nasika prince is grouped in Arabic with Masik, which is a monster. And I think that the original usage of the word monster, which is coming from the verbal root misik, which is to catch, to hold or to grasp or seize, is really connoting the dragon or the reptile. So for example, in the Latin, it would be rapier, which is a reptile, rapier, which is a rapist or an abductor. Again, within the Greek, you've got Soros, a lizard, and you've got the word, I'm trying to remember now, but the word of a robber, yes. Even in the English, dragon and to drag off. Again, this idea of dragging off is to abduct, because the dragon is equated with the abductor. In the Greek traditions, this would be the harpy. Arpue is the Greek word for an abductor or an harpy. Again, is related to oplon, a shield, which would be a flying disc or a shield. Opolite, which is a soldier. Erpaton, which is a reptile. and to abduct. So again, this would be the angelic host, which is equated with abduction. Sabaoth host is related to Salb, which is abduction. Saba host, Salb abduction. So the host steal, they take humans. And so the idea that an alien, as we said, is synonymous with an angel. The idea that an alien steals or abducts is not this modern phenomenon which we're being taught within, shall we say, contemporary ufology, that this is a modern construct. And this is what the skeptics are always arguing. But within the scaphological tradition of the angelic sailors, we're here really dealing with the abductors. And so this is something which is ancient. The Romans talked about it as nympholyptos, to be stolen by the nymphs. So this is something we need to be mindful of. So Masika monster is equated with misik, which is to grasp, to seize. So, and as we said before, the Nakash, a serpent, or Nekar, which is strange, is related to Karim, which is a noble, and Karim, which is a jinn or a familiar. And so we're just going to look at the idea and just recap on the idea that the seraphim or the serpent is equated with a noble. Seraph, a serpent, is related in Arabic, or is closely concordant to the seraphic tradition of Sarif, which is a noble. So the seraphim inform the traditions of the nobles. And we're seeing also Nakash, a snake, is concordant with Nasik, a prince. Again, this princely lineage. As we said, Malak, an angel, is Malak, a sailor, Melech, king, in English, kingship. Again, in the Aramaic, Zar, an angel or an alien, is a paranomasia on Sar, which is a prince. So we're dealing here with, and Sar, a prince, would go back to Sira, which is a boat. So again, lordship. Sira, boat, is Sira, which is Sirius. So the idea of the second creation, or panspermia, this idea that life was planted on the earth, is very important within the secret occult tradition. And my final point was Nekar, an alien, and Karim, which is a noble, obviously concordant with Karim, which is a jinn.
Would you say that Nakash and Nehushtan, is that one and the same?
Yes, they are one and the same. Basically, that's rendered as a brazen object or a brazen thing. Well, in the commentaries, it's translated as a brazen thing, but I think I prefer the word object. It's a little bit more specific, but really it's actually referring to the brazen serpent. So I could also quickly go over some of the ideas of living, because again, the idea of living or looking towards God is also equated with the host. So, for example, and the Lord said unto Moses, make thee a fiery serpent, which is seraph, and set it upon a pole, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is bitten, when he looketh upon it, he shall live. Well, Ka, which is to live, of course, is a nod and a wink to the Elake, which is a high creature or a living God. It's polymorphic. So they're one and the same. Again, it's making reference to the Elohim, the high ones, or a god or a deity, specifically the Lord and his host, Yahweh Sabaoth. And as we said, the Elake, a high creature, again, is closely analogous to Khazar, which is the modern Hebrew word for a space alien, coming from the derivative Zar, which is an angel, alien, stranger, visitor, or a foreigner. To summarize, we can say that the bite signifies a number of ideas. So we'll go over some of these ideas. To bite in the biblical passage is nashak, to strike with a sting or to bite. In this respect, this is a fiery bite equated with venom, nasak, which is to catch fire. So again, the bite of the serpent, which can kill, and which in the Islamic tradition is equated with the burning of the fingertips. In the biblical tradition, with the scourging of fire. These are all signifiers of the Elohim, of the seraphim. As I said before, the Elohim are one and the same with the seraphim. So Elohim is concordant or paralleled with Erin, a watcher or a shining one, Awim, which are the serpents in the Old Semitic. Again, in the Greek, Theos, God, Theros, a watcher, Therion, which is a beast. As we said, the watcher or the beast is Drakon, which is a watcher or a sentinel. So, and we also made reference to the fact that the seraphim and Nakash is a fiery serpent or a seraphim. They're one and the same. Now, what's quite interesting is Nashak, to bite, is a polymorphic symbol. So it's a polymorphic word, which is a word which has multiple meanings. The term Nashak, to bite, can also mean usury, which is to loan money at an exorbitant rate. And again, when we're dealing with money at a number of different levels, because money connotes redemption or the buying of sin. So this idea that the wicked are purged through fire, and then there is resurrection and there is life. And so we're seeing here the idea of the atonement of sin, which is redemption, to buy back. And again, in the traditions of the votive priestess and the sacrifice, the votive dish is typically represented as an axle and wheel, which denotes the opening wheel. And so we're dealing here with sacrificial tradition, this idea of redemption. And again, the coin, even in the ancient world, the coins are often serrated. They have a serrated edge, and this is a cog. Once again, the coin is used to connote an opening wheel, and this idea of the purchasing or buying back for the redemption of sin, to atone, is equated with sacrificial redemption. So within the passage also it's looking at the idea of sacrificial redemption, that the evil will be scourged, and through this there will be redemption, and then there will be new life. As we said before, there is also the subtext of this idea of an angelic or royal lineage, which would supplant. And so the cobra or the seraphim, the cobra in particular, is a personification of the shining seraphim. And the cobra is ejaculatory, so it denotes sexual intercourse. And so we're seeing, therefore, that there is if you like, a wordplay in the Hebrew between nashak, which is to strike, and nashak is to kiss. So the kissing of the serpent. The kissing of the serpent is the kiss of death. It equates with supplanting. It equates with redemption. And it also equates with a new lineage or a new life, which can be represented with the rod. The rod is this grafted bloodline or a family tree. Right, take it away.
Okay. The cobra, that reminds me of Buddha statues in India.
Yeah.
With the huge cobra head. Is that a sign that they are saying Buddha derives from that same lineage?
He was a king, wasn't he? And the kings were all derived from Naga,
king, yeah.
The Naga, which is a serpent. Again, it's quite interesting because in the Sanskrit, Naga, a serpent, is a pun on Nagna, which is naked. In English, we'd find the same polyglottal wordplay as snake and naked. And so these wordplays play out in multiple languages, but essentially the serpent is equated with this hidden lineage. Now, within the Buddhist tradition, and I'll be honest with you, I've studied it to a degree, but I'm not that familiar with the Buddhist tradition. But the Buddhist tradition, its priesthood would be partitioned in the same way. So you would find that there's a seraphic element, which would represent the Buddha with the serpent, and then you would find that there's a humanist element as well. So in the same way, the Buddhist priesthood is split between two main branches, but you're finding this also within the priesthood as well, whether it's Protestant and Catholic, Sunni and Shiite. You're seeing that you have a humanist tradition and a serpent tradition, which are the seraphim, or these non-human angels. But again, it does get very complicated because sometimes these are switching signifiers, and so the seraphic tradition can shift to the humanist tradition and vice versa. So the complexity is very complicated, and the idea behind that is the joining or conjoining of bloodlines, and so the symbol itself can shift. I just want to point out, therefore, that because what we said was Nakash, a serpent, is a wordplay on Nashak, which is to strike, which also means to kiss, but it can also mean to equip, because this idea of equipping oneself is to combine, as in to kiss or to join together, and or to equip, which is to join. You'd put your sword in your sheath, and you would put your equipment and carry your equipment. So this idea connotes this lineage, and again, it's identified with military conquest. I think that's the subtext behind the passage, that there is this idea that you will surrender to the Lord, to Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord of the host. Again, I just want to draw attention also between the serpent and we made allusion between the Nagna in the Sanskrit tradition, Nagna, which is naked, snake and naked in the English polyglottal wordplay, but also the Hebrew word anas rape is a diptych paronomasia on the Arabic noun Hanas, which is a serpent. So the serpent is a rapist or an abductor, which is found in the Latin rapere, a reptile, rapere, which is a rapist or an abductor. So that's essentially the tradition of Moses. He's born of the boat. The traditions also are alluding to this proto-messianic lineage, which would then develop into the line of kings, which was this royal lineage which supplanted Esau in the traditions of Jacob and Esau. Jacob is the supplanter. Esau means hairy. Hair is used to denote the mammal, which is the human lineage. As we said, there is this partition in the priesthood between the seraphic and humanist elements. So that's essentially Moses and the pole. It's kind of long-winded. If you're up for it, we can move on into the Book of Kings. Are you okay with?
Yeah.
I don't know how long we've been. We're okay. Okay, I'm quite happy to continue. So now I'm going to look at the quotation from the Book of Kings, and we're going to look at the serpent. So 2 Kings, chapter 18, verse 4. Ezekiah, the king of Judah, which was a son of David, and again, the passages tend to change the names around, and this is because some of these are honorific titles, and so therefore a name sometimes switches, because sometimes a name would become a title, and so a different name might be used or a different title. So he removed the high places and brake the images and cut down the groves and brake in pieces the brazen serpent. Nakash here is used for the word serpent, that Moses had made, for unto those days the children of Israel's, which in the original text is the sons of Israel, did burn incense to it, and they called it Neshushtan, a brass thing or a brass object, coming from Nakash. Okay, the ch sound in the Semitic is closely analogous to the ch, the guttural ch sound. So Nehushtan, a brazen thing. Now, there are numerous word plays on this, so we'll look into this. Now, first of all, let's have a look. The son of David, he broke the images and cut down the groves. So I want to have a look now what is meant in the passage of breaking the images. Now, the terminology in the Bible is matzabah, which is a pillar or a memorial or standing stone. And again, we're seeing that the etymologies are closely aligned to mat, which means death, and saboth, which is the host. So in this respect, this could be some type of memorial stone. Again, I suspect that some of these marking stones were used to actually denote where missiles or fallen UFOs or flying saucers were buried by the priesthood. And again, you're finding this with the obelisks in the temples as well, this idea of a missile, which are used to denote temple sanctuaries. So I think that this is an important subtext which lays behind the image of breaking images. This idea that, yes, at one level it's a pillar or a memorial stone, but these memorial stones could also be the burial places of these strange objects as well. So I want to now look at the grove symbolism, and the grove symbolism is quite complex. Again, in English, the word grove is closely related to the word grave in the Teutonic languages, and so the grove again could denote a burial place, and which is found within the passage. So in the Hebrew and the Semitic, Asherah, the plural noun, groves, again is equated or is coming from the etymology of Asherim, which is an idol or a cult object, which is particularly made from wood or is a type of pole. So again, it's taking us back to the brazen serpent, and we know that it's taking us back to the brazen serpent because of the reference to Nehushtan, which is a brazen object or a brass thing. So, but again, Asherah grove in the Phoenician dialect would be equated with Ashtar, which is Asherah, and this was the goddess Venus. And again, Venus is a signifier of Sirius, which is the seraphic tradition. So again, we're dealing here what appears with different factions of the seraphic tradition, which are almost arguing amongst themselves about who is going to actually rule over Israel. There seems to be, if you like, this civil war which is playing out, or this political division, this political split. So now the Asherim, which is a type of idol or a cult object, which is pole-like, which looks like a pole, is used to denote Moses' pole, which erected the brazen serpent. And as we said, this then would be another word for Nes, which was the flagpole or the sail pole. And again, the idea of the pole, therefore, would be related to the missiles and these flaming circular missiles, which are equated. Well, they're equated with a number of different ideas within the Semitic traditions. They're equated with the seed basket, which is a vessel, which is a boat or a ship. They're equated with pleon, a boat or a vessel in the Greek, oplon, a shield. So they're equated with these shields or the opening wheels or baskets or vessels. or missiles. And the missile is a type of projectile which is circular or elliptical, which was flown from a catapult, which again has this connotation of this military host. Again, that's played out in the Greek word stratos, host, meaning an army. So we're very clear that this is a military army, but it's equated with Malak, a sailor, Malak, an angel. So this is a military or naval itinerant equated with the host. Again, a number of interesting word plays. We've got Asher, which is from the Arabic adjective Ashar, blonde. Again, I suggest that we're dealing here with a brazen color of hair. It's brazen, it's bronze-like. And again, Asher is said to be one of the to have originated the tribe of Israel. But again, this is omitted within many versions of the Bible. So this again seems to be a hidden tradition. Whether this is because there is argument over the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Israel and where the origins actually lay, maybe it's a political. This is political. But Asher is also known is also used in the Semitic to denote the Assyrians. So the Asherim poles, in this respect, would have been equated with the Assyrians, and the worship of Ashtaroth, or Asherah, as she was known. And I think what's quite interesting, the word Asherah Grove, again, we're seeing an interesting wordplay on Asherah Grove and Asherah, evil Asher. So again, could this be making reference to the evil Assyrians or to the tribe of Asher? So again, it seems to be factional and it seems to be political. The language is very nuanced, as what we would expect from the priesthood, because the priesthood's favourite mode of discourse is paranomasia, it's wordplay. And so they're always using wordplay. And we need, when you're reading any passage, whether it's the Quran, Wujud al-Quran, the forgotten recitation, which is the Arabic word for a polymorphic word or a word which has multiple meanings, you have to be mindful. So the Quran is this layered document. It's written in polymorphic language, as is the Bible. So we'll just quickly have a look at Nekushtan, which is a brazen object identified with the brazen serpent. Again, we're seeing that it's coming from the etymology Nekash, which is a serpent. Now, Nakar is to guide or to lead. And again, we're seeing that it's a wordplay on Nekushtan is a wordplay on Nakas, a shaitan. Nakas, shaitan, is this idea that the shaitan can guide or to lead. So the brazen pole has this double motif. At one level, it's seen as being Luciferian, satanic. It's equated with a Venus, which is the shining one. The shining one is Sirius, which is the seraphic tradition. But again, it's also equated with the fallen angel. So something in the tradition of Moses split and was equated with the fallen angels, hence the split within the priesthood. So the opposer, or Satan, is one who leads one astray. That is the inference. So looking at the chapter then, if we read the chapter again, and just to quickly summarize, he removed the high places, and he brake the images, and he cut down the groves, and he brake in pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it, and called it Neshtan, a brass thing. Okay, so Nakash is a serpent, is related to this brazen pole. We're seeing that there's a split within the priesthood. It seems to be with the split of Asher, and again is related to the worship of Ashtaroth, and is equated with these groves, and these groves are equated with probably what would have been a death cult, hence the pillar, which is a memorial stone, which is equated with the Lord and his hosts, or shall we say the fallen angels and the host. Again, this would be context dependent, because depending on which side you see, what would happen in the ancient world when you were dealing with the El or the Elohim is that they would probably use the language in the same way. They would say, well, this is our deity and your deity is the opposer and your deity is causing problems. So because they had this deity which was enotheistic, who was the Lord of the host, anyone who opposed the Lord of the host instantly was a shaitan. And this also included political opposition as well. Hence, the old word shaitan could denote a political party, which influences the Hebrew word shilton, which is a government, and sultan, which is the royal lineage, which is from this fallen lineage, and tan, which is a crocodile, tanim, which is a dragon. So the lineage of the sultan is derived from the dragon. So We're going to take a big leap forward in time now, and we're going to go to Revelations, which again is really looking at the Titanomachy, or the battle of the Titans, which are the fallen angels. Titan, or Satan, which is Satan, the fallen angels. So, and again, Satan is referred to as the shining one. He's referred to as a dragon. He's referred to as a serpent. So the deduction here is that Satan is a high angel, and again would be a type of jinn. Now, Satan was the highest angel, and the implication was that Satan was the angel which was the Lord of the host before he became the adversary, before he tried to supplant the Elohim, or El, which was God. So we're going to look at Revelations chapter 12, verses 7 to 9. And there was war in heaven. Michael. Now, Michael is a wordplay on Mekah, which is a container or a vessel. As we said, these are circular shields which were thrown at the enemy. So Mekah, a container or vessel, Malak, an angel, and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon, in the Greek drakon, which is a sentinel or a watcher, it's used to denote the Hebrew word seraphim. As we said before, the Hebrew word seraphim is sometimes rendered in the Arabic by Arabic translators as the jinn. So in this respect, the seraphic tradition, or the seraphim, are deemed to be as the jinn. They would be the Ruach Elohim, the high spirits. So the dragon fought, and his angels prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the old world. He was cast into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So we'll have a look at the word dragon. The word dragon, drakon, is a watcher or a seraphim, which are the Ruach Elohim, the high spirits, otherwise rendered as an elakeh, a high creature. But also, the dragon is also referred to in a figurative sense as Ophis, which is a serpent. Again, Ophis, a serpent, is equated in the Greek with opis, which is sight, ops, which is an eye. So the serpent is a watcher. The watcher is a deity, theos, a god in Greek, theros, a watcher, therion, which is a beast. And we can say also that ops and eye in the Hellene culture is closely concordant with the idea of the angelic host, which in this respect are the harpies, those who seize. So we have ops and eye, arp to seize, which is a harpy. We find the same wordplay also in the Greek etymology, suro, to drag off, sauros, which is a lizard. In English, dragon, and to drag off. Again, we said in the Hebrew, anas is a rapist. It's a diptych paranomase on the Arabic word hanas, which is a serpent. In the Latin, it's a polyglottal symbol of rapier, reptile, rapier, which is a rapist. So these are all identified with the seraphic host, Yahweh Sabaoth, Sabah, host, Salb, which is abduction. And again, we find this within the prophetic traditions. Enoch, Ezekiel, all of these different prophets, they're all taken by the Lord of the host, by the fiery wheels, the opening wheels, or the flying shields, the shield of the Lord, which is a type of aegis, which in today's parlance is a flying saucer. So, do you have any questions?
Some people say that this war in heaven already took place.
Yes.
That it's already done.
Yes. You see, this is where it gets difficult. Because it's my opinion, having studied this intensely for, many years, nearly 20 years, the thing is that we're dealing with a holographic culture, and they've deconstructed the mechanics of waveform reality. And so, it could be that what we're dealing with here is that the war in heaven was a future event. And I'm not saying that this is the case, but I'm saying that we need to be mindful of that we're dealing with a holographic culture. So traditionally it's set in the past, and it's set in terms of that the earth was constructed as a mirror image of Yahweh Sabaoth, the Lord, and his host, which is the ship of state. But what we could be dealing here with is that could have occurred in the future, and then they could have planted mankind into the past. So I think we need to be mindful of that. So I keep a very open mind about that. And the reason why I keep an open mind about that is that when I started looking into some of the Meso traditions, and this was many, many years ago, I realized that some of their sacrificial practices, from what I could gather from looking at some of their etymologies, it seemed like that what they were doing was that they thought that mankind had been utterly destroyed really completely destroyed by a war in the future, and then was replanted on the earth. And it seemed like that they were doing what was basically genocide and killing as many people as possible to change the timeline. That was my way of interpreting what they were doing and why they were sacrificing so many people. So they were trying to change the timeline. And although from our perspective, we would consider this to be sick and grotesque, and they were sacrificing to the serpent, as were the Jews and the Hellenes, but they were doing this for a specific reason, and that was to try and preserve the human race in order that the future wouldn't occur. So that's something which is a little anecdote, which is interesting to ponder upon. Now, I want to have a look. As we said, the war in heaven is the Titanomachy, and it refers to the fall of heaven. It refers to the fall of the Anthropos, which is the demonic, human, and angelic races. And again, this idea of the blending and mingling of bloodlines really is a part of what can be considered to be the fall of the Anthropos, which then led to the establishment of kingship, which are those who are born of a boat, which is this conjoined. In the Semitic traditions, they're referred to as grafted or stitched. And again, so you're seeing that there is a connection between Seraph and the Rephaim, which are the giants, but again, the Rephaim can also be translated as the ghosts, which again would be the Jinn or the Ruach Elohim. So again, the terminology is duplicitous, it's nuanced, it's very subtle. Now, I want to have a look at the word devil, because we've got the word, the dragon here is obviously referring to the seraphim. It's also referring to the word Satan, as in the opposer, one who rebelled against heaven. I mean, in the Islamic traditions, this would be Iblis. In the Greek, this would be Ubris, which would be to rebel against the gods. So Iblis is coming from not the Arabic root Balasa, which is often traced. It's actually coming from the Hellene root Ubris, which is pride or arrogance, or to rebel, specifically to rebel against the gods. This is important because the Quran often cites Apocrypha and Greek texts, and it's very much influenced by Greek writing, and that in itself has been, shall we say, covered up by the Islamic tradition. I would actually argue that Muslims would argue that in order to understand the Quran and the fullness of the Quran, you have to understand Arabic. I would say actually you need to understand Arabic and Greek, because many of the Arabic words appear to be operating on Greek word plays as well. And there are also references to the Apocrypha traditions. For example, the Kirim and Katibin, which are the two recording angels, are found within the Socratic tradition. Socrates was said to have two guarding angels, which was his Kaku daemon and his Agatha daemon, which was a good and a bad angel. So again, we're seeing this idea of within the Roman traditions, this goes into the mind of the conscious and the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind is the demonic mind. The unconscious mind is the mind which is irrational, but is also able to connect with the demonic or with the angelic host. So this then feeds into modern psychoanalytical theory of this conscious and subconscious mind. But I think the readers really need to be aware that psychoanalytical theory and the idea of the conscious and the rational and irrational mind is going back into the Roman mysteries and much more earlier. They had deconstructed the mind and they understood how the mind operated. So this is something, again, that we're seeing. Now, to go back to the etymology of devil, diabolus is an accuser or a slanderer. Again, the word is coming from ballo, which is to throw. In other words, we would say throw accusations or to throw slander. Now, it's really a translation of the name Satan, an adversary or an opposer. It's kind of it's a little bit looser translation, an accuser or a slanderer, but one who accuses or slanders is one who opposes, and one who opposes is a shaitan. As we said, shaitan could also denote a political party, hence a split within the priesthood, and also the split within the angelic order. Interestingly, we're seeing that there's a relationship etymologically between diabolus, a devil, ballo, to throw, and belos, which is a missile or an arrow. As I said before, a missile and an arrow can be phallic, as in terms of the planting of the seed which can be represented as the planting of the rod of Judah, which again relates to the neophyte. But again, because it's a missile, it has this strong connotation of these opening wheels. And so therefore, bolus, a dart, belos, a missile or an arrow, ballo, to throw, is related in the Teutonic languages to ball. The ball is a circular or elliptical missile. Again, when we're looking at olkos, which is the Greek word for a ship, olkos is closely related to ark, and ark is circular or round. And this is why when we look at Noah's Ark, Teva and Ark, it's often depicted in illuminated manuscripts as not like a traditional boat as what you see at Sunday school, but it's like a flying saucer. It looks exactly like how the Japanese represent their utsu no fone, which is a hollow boat. A hollow boat is polymorphic of a hollow tree. A hollow tree is used to decorate the parameters of the temples. So they are understood to be a type of flying saucer, which are the opening wheels or these flying shields. Opelon, a shield, pleon, a boat. So the devil also is equated with the establishment of governments as well, and the split within government. And so we have the high house and the low house, which denotes the commons and the nobles or lordship. And this is found in the Hebrew wordplay shilton, government, and shaitan. Again, a political party in this respect, or the fallen angels. But again, in the Greek, diabolos, a devil, boul, which is the senate or seat of government. So boul, to refer to the senate or the seat of government. So again, this idea that there was a war in heaven and that the governments were instituted by the fallen angels, and that there is a distinction between the common man. Commons in the Latin is hairy. As we said before, in the Judaic tradition, Jacob and Esau is hairy, Jacob is the supplanter, Keb, which is a serpent, going back in the earlier traditions of the Torah in the book of Genesis, to Eve and Awa, which is a serpent. This hidden lineage, which again, although is typically propagated through the matriarchal lineage, which is the royal lineage, we're seeing, as we said earlier, that there's a secret wordplay between Adam and Adon, which is a lizard. Again, this idea that there is this hidden Adamic lineage, which is identified with the serpent also. So that is essentially the war in heaven. I kind of gave you a breakdown that the serpent is a watcher, ops and I is equated to office, a serpent. Again, the modern idea of an office worker, originally an office would denote a serpent, but it could also denote an office worker, one who gives sacrifices. Now in today's language, an office worker is a worker of the serpent, and he would therefore wear a necktie, which it denotes a serpent, which is tied. Again, the Levite priesthood is to tie. And we're finding this also with the Sodi priesthood as well, Sad, which is to tie. Sodi priesthood of Moses is concordant with the worship of El Shaddai, which is the old word for Yahweh Sabaoth. El Shaddai, Almighty God. Shaddai is related to shed, a goblin, ghost, ghoul, or jinn. So again, this would be denominational of the Ruach Elohim, the high spirits, who were equated both with the jinn and with the seraphim, who were identified with Sirius, the shining one. Sarah, which is a spark. Sirah, which is the sparkling one. Sarah, a spark, obviously denotes fire, hence the correspondence with Seraph and Serapha, which is fire, which is esoterically the jinn who are born from fire. The fire in this respect is often used to denote the fact that they're spiritual, that they can dematerialize. But remember, it's also used as this codification, this astrotheological codification of Sirius. So I want to have a look now at Revelations chapter 9, verse 19. This is very interesting because, as I said, we spoke earlier about how the serpent is equated with the ruler, and now there are various word plays such as Malach, an angel, and Melech, a king. So we're going to now look at Revelations chapter 9, verse 19. For their power, the word power here is exousia, authority, is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails were unto like serpents and had heads, and with them they do hurt. So let's have a look at some of the renditions. the word power and authority is the powers or the authorities or the principalities. These are all really interchangeable terminologies and refer to the archons. The archons is an angel. It's polymorphic of a ruler. Again, the word archon is related to olkas, which is a large ship or a carrier vessel, and akan, which is the old Babylonian word for a seraph from ak, which is to shine. So again, Akim, a ruler, is related to Akan, a seraph. So in the original text, what's quite interesting is for their powers is in their mouth, but in the original text it reads the power of the horses. And I think that that's quite interesting because it's interesting for a number of reasons. Number one, the horse is used esoterically to denote the dragon because the dragon looks a little bit like a horse. And again, we're seeing that, if you like, Ippo, a horse, Uppo, which is under. So there's a correspondence with that which is under. The archons preside over. So again, this idea that they rule over. Now, esoterically, the Hebrew word sus, a horse, is a diptych paronomasia on colloquial Arabic, sus, which is a worm. And the worm is used to denote a dragon or a jinn. Jinn, a serpent or a worm. So again, the worm is often used as this signifier of the jinn. And this is because the worm eats soil. And soil, Adamah, the Hebrew word for soil, is equated with Adam. So when the worm eats soil, it's actually eating the descendants of mankind. So, are you okay? I mean,
I'm okay.
We've been going at it for quite a long time.
Yeah. So in our first interview, I asked you at one point if it's fair to say that these seraphim races run Earth as their personal enterprise.
Yeah.
And you said yes, basically.
Yes, basically the serpents are equated with rulership. Akim, a king. Akan, which is a seraph. As we said, Sari for noble, seraph. Or Mal, Persian word for leader, Mar, serpent. Archon, Drakon, Archon and Akan.
And you also pointed out that there are different factions. Those that would like to continue the oppression of humanity, those that are of the opinion that to
rule ourselves, basically.
To rule ourselves. So when we look at the current situation, have you ever thought along the lines what is going on here? If on a different level we are seeing a fight between those two factions?
Yeah, again, I think that this is found within political discourse, but it's often hidden behind political discourse. And so really, when you're looking at what politicians are saying, you have to go back to the etymologies of the words because they're conveying this private discourse. And typically they would be conveying, so for example, Labour and Conservative, if we gave an example, red, Adam, is red, denoting Adam, which is humanity. And then you've got blue, which equates, the Latin word for blue is equated to heaven. So you've got... blue blood, exactly, the noble bloodline. But it's more complicated because if you look, the Labour Party denotes itself with the rose, and again, the English rose with the House of Lancashire, the Yorkists, the House of York. But the rose is a scion. It's a plant which is very easily grafted. And so it's used to denote the grafting of a bloodline. Again, the rose, the petals of the rose is sometimes used to indicate the female genitalia as well. And again, it's going back into the idea of a family tree. The family tree is that which is grafted, which is equated to the tree and the serpent. So if you like, even the Labour Party itself has been supplanted by those who have been grafted. This really goes into the three orders of the Illuminati, which is the humanist element, the seraphic element, and then the neophytes, which are these elements which are grafted. So yes, but I'm not perhaps as well, shall we say, well read into modern or contemporary politics as what I should be. I think some of this is that I gave up on the political system a long time ago when I realized that it's all a cult. And again, you're even seeing in the propaganda, and I'd say to your viewers, listen out for the surnames of reporters on the news. This is something that I noted. So, for example, and I'm dealing now here with a number of years ago, at least a decade ago, but we had a political correspondent, and his name was Wilby. But will be is reaffirming that something will be. And when it's repeated over and over again. So what do you think about these changes on da-di-da-di-da? Will be, will be, will be. So again, and the war correspondent was savage. And so they're always putting in these subtle undertones within the news. And sometimes I wonder whether the journalists, whether they're writing under pseudonyms or whether they're just chosen because of their name, that the name is actually quite useful at a subliminal level to propagate an idea, is subliminal symbolism. So that's essentially the serpent, and how the serpent equates to the rulership on the planet, and how this has been going on for thousands of years, and some of the connotations behind the word serpent when we use it within the biblical tradition. As I mentioned, that the serpent is this non-human angel.
Yeah, so in other words, as of now, it seems as if those that are on the oppressor side are winning. I'm not saying they will, but with tracing.
I think that this is a pivotal moment for humanity, because we have to get our act together, and I think that this is very, very clear, because otherwise we're going to be compromised, and so we really need to come together, and we need to. But I think we need to do this legally, through the courts. And I know that this in a sense is a problem, because you've got the dock of court, which is going back to the angelic ship and the angelic boat and maritime law. And so, and again, you really got two laws. You've got the laws for the nobles, and you've got the upper courts, and then you've got the lower courts for the commons. But again, this really needs to be deconstructed. My work, I think, gives some indicators in terms of how the dock of law, and again, the legal system itself is very secret. When you're dealing with the law, you've got Black's Law, which is used as the textbook within law, but Black's Law is really referring to the Sodi, which is the priesthood of Moses. And again, these wordplays all the time. I'm trying to think. J.E. Hoover, Jehovah. So these wordplays are playing out even within our political system. Somebody as famous as Hoover, his name is alluding to Jehovah. Black's Law is the Sodi priesthood. Sodi, Sauda, which is black, which is the worship of the Shedim, which is a goblin, ghost, ghoul, or spirit, equated with the Lord of the host, or the Lord of the spiritual host, which are the Ruach Elohim, or the Shedim, which is a goblin, ghost, ghoul. It's one and the same thing. So, yeah, but I'm quietly optimistic, is what I always say. And I think that this is because more information is coming out on the internet. The information now is so rich and, shall we say, saturated now, that, that the authorities themselves are saying, oh gosh, maybe we need to censor the internet. And so I think that this, in a sense, is quite a good sign. It's a good sign, because it means that we are getting our message across. And so I am optimistic. And I do actually believe that humans are good. We're decent beings. The problem is, in terms of violence and war, it's all done through ignorance. Whether it was the Japanese soldier murdering, or the German, or the British, they were killing for the same reason. They just wanted to, they thought that they were right, and they were trying to preserve, in most cases, trying to preserve human integrity, their version of human integrity. But that came through ignorance. And so we need to push back, but we need to do it in a way which is peaceful. We need to do it in a way which is legal, and we need to do it in a way which is open and transparent, and which the world can see. And I believe that this is already occurring. So I am optimistic, and I think we need to be optimistic as well. And I think that this actually feeds into mind control and subliminal symbolism, because when you look at the occult tradition of mind control, what's important is that the thoughts control the universe. If you believe in the anthropological model of the universe, then our thoughts influence the universe. And so if you control through subliminal symbolism, or if you can control what a person thinks, you're not only just controlling the observer, but you're controlling the universe and how the universe unfolds. And so I think we need to be optimistic in order to propagate, to create the change, to create that change. And so that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, wonderful final words.
Yeah, okay. I will just mention, I guess final words, a good place to finish would be my book, Holographic Culture. And I mention in my book, Holographic Culture, that when we're dealing with the Elohim, the high ones, we're actually dealing with a species who have deconstructed the mechanics of the waveform reality. So if you like, they have this control over the physical and the spiritual world. In other words, they can materialize and dematerialize. And again, they've also interpenetrated the spiritual realm as well, which is the imaginal realm. So we know that the imaginal or the spiritual realm are interconnected. So Buddha said, with your thoughts you make the world, and this is certainly played out within Platonic philosophy. You have universal forms, which are the implicated order, and the implicated order is materialized as particular forms, so it's particularized physically. So the spirit becomes physical, and the spirit world is very much dreamlike, and it's very much hallucinogenic, and we know it's hallucinogenic from near-death experience. And as I keep telling my viewers, we know that it's not an hallucination from studies in blind people. Okay, so the spirit realm is very much like a dream, and this is why dreams are very important in terms of the occult tradition, because if you can gain control over your dream, then you can navigate the spiritual realm, and this means that you can then navigate your incarnation. The problem is, if you die and you're, shall we say, unconscious, it's a bit like dreaming and you forgot your dream. So you forgot that you're within a dream, and you can end up anywhere within that dream. It can materialize in any way. Often this would be dependent upon the soul pattern and dependent upon the soul of the person. But this is very much connected to the spirit and links into pneuma, which is the spirit, nous, which is the mind. So we're dealing with a holographic culture, and the holographic culture are rendered as the Elohim, which are the Elakeh, a high creature or a living God, and they can dematerialize as a Ruach Elohim, a high spirit. Now, people sometimes ask me, well, is this just a creature that insinuates the mind, and are we just dealing with a psychological species? And certainly this is played out in some of the word plays, but I think, having looked at this and studied it very meticulously, we're dealing with a technological species. So we're dealing here with a technological species. I just want to point out some of the relationships between the serpent and the jinn, and I think we can finish on that. So just to give you a quick summary or word list, the Elohim are equated to the Ruach Elohim, which are the high spirits. The word Elohim is equated to Erin, a watcher or a shining one, Awim, which is a serpent. Again, we see that there's a relationship between Archon, an angel or a ruler, Akon, an image, Akan, which is a seraph, but that's the Babylonian word. But remember, Archon would play in the Greek with Drakon, which again, Drakane, which is to look, shine, gleam, flash. Jinn,
is that why we have draconian laws?
Yeah, draconian law is the seraphic law, and the break from the seraphic law is the republic, as in publicus, as in the public. So the Vulgate Bible would be the public Bible, and then you've got the private one, which is for the noble or lordship. It's nothing to do with the priesthood. Jinn, you've got a spirit, which is Jana, to hide or to conceal. The implication is that it's invisible, it's concealed. Jen, a serpent or a worm. In the Aramaic, Yahweh is transliterated as Aya, and that is related to Aya, an appearance, and Aya, which is a serpent, Ayal, which is a goblin. Again, Sabaoth, Yahweh Sabaoth. Sabah, host, is related to Sepheth, which is a viper, Seraph. Aramaic, Seraph, Shofar, which is a seraphim, or the serpents, the seraphim race, which is the Anguigena, the Latin word for the offspring of the serpent, or the Serpentagena, also the Latin word for the offspring of the serpent. Okay, if anyone's interested in what I've been talking about, then please go to my website, Pierre Sabak Books, or otherwise you could go to my YouTube channel. Just search for Pierre Sabak, that's my YouTube channel, and I've got numerous YouTubes and interviews on there. And thank you very much, Judith, for being very patient with me. I know it's been a very long evening, and we've gone through quite a lot of words and etymologies, and it's very complex. It's very layered. So thank you for being patient with me as well.
No problem.
Thank you.
I love these conversations, although I'm more the listener. But
yeah.
And this is one of those interviews that I have to listen to, like, I don't know, 5 times. You know, because while I'm sitting here, yes, I'm concentrated and I'm listening, but there are many details that just slip by, and then when you listen again and again, and then click, click, click.
Yeah. Like, well, also, you just brought in an idea now. In the mind, sometimes the mind is represented as a cogs of a wheel, and this is because in the Greek there's a relationship between nous, the mind, nos, which is a boat. This again is this idea that the opening wheels can effectuate thought, which is equated with pneuma, the spirit. So again, we're seeing the symbology absolutely everywhere. And in fact, today I'm wearing my Adamic shirt just to say, to emphasize the humanist tradition and to emphasize that obviously we really do, and your red hair as well. So we really do need to be pushing forward. We need to be that change that we want to see. And so I always say to my viewers, when the viewers say, I don't know what to do, start posting leaflets. If you've got a subject, whether it's 5Gs, vaccines, or anything like that, post things on social media, post leaflets, even if it's just talking about it with your family. This is really, really important, because this is the way how change occurs. It's like a domino effect. And if you lead by example, you will have multiple dominoes falling on all around you on all sides. And one domino leads to another domino. It's almost like a circuit board. Thank you very much for what you're doing, because you are trying to be that change. And it's people like you who will make that change materialize in the future to make a better world. So it's people like you just continuing doing what you're doing, being steadfast, trying to set an example and trying to do, the right thing and trying to get this information out. So thank you very much, Judith.
And thank you. I mean, your research connected so many dots for me.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
well, sometimes when I start talking, it connects the dots for me as well. Sometimes it's a little bit abstract. You got all these words
because you're teaching yourself as well while you're talking.
Course. Absolutely. So once again, thank you very much, and please check out my website and YouTube channel at Pierre Sabak. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Judith.
So this was it, guys. Night flight for today with the wonderful Pierre Sabak, and we see you next time. Stay safe from tyranny and sound out there. Bye.
Thank you very much, Judith. Thank you.